So the first week that we announced we were going to be closed, Friday, March 13th, was the last day we were in school. And we communicated to our staff right at the end of the day that we were going to be shut for 2 weeks. So at that point in time, that first week that we were out, we basically treated like snow days. The second week, we decided to really focus on our staff. So we had our staff come back to the buildings, pick up any materials that they needed to be able to work remotely from home. We had a lot of staff that participated in professional development and training online that second week, setting up Google Classrooms or different platforms that we had to be able to reconnect with their students to continue the remote learning.
So after talking to the high school teachers, middle school teachers, as well as the school administration, we had decided that since the third term had started January 28th, that it would be a good idea to actually close out term 3, because we technically only lost 2 weeks at the high school level and 2.5 weeks at the middle school level. So those grades were, pretty much complete.
And then week 3, we really started to focus on students at that point. So we had students come back into the schools, pick up materials that they needed. If they needed a technology that they didn't have a computer or a way to connect at home, we started having the shift to be more teacher-led. And so that will actually now continue. At the different levels, one of the things that we've decided to do is just really focus on what we call some of the power standards.
The real have-tos, what are things that students need to walk away with at the end of this school year to feel successful and be able to move on without any major learning gaps between now and next year? So that way teachers can build all of their lessons around those standards and keep it really focused for students, because there's a lot going on for the students as well. So we wanted to make sure that we kept it clear and concise.
We know we're going to have to go back over the summer and even in the fall and kind of revise some of our pacing guides, cover some of the content that perhaps we didn't get to this spring. And honestly, that's fine. I don't want people to be panicked or stressed out more than they have to be during this point in time.
The good news is our scheduling at the high school level was pretty much complete. Guidance counselors have been working with students at the high school level that didn't have a total of 70 credits picked for classes. So they're filling in, we call them, filling in those holes, right? Finding those students and finding out, where they're missing something. So right now for scheduling at the high school, we have all of our tallies. So that means courses that students wanted to take or have to take. And what happens from that point on is that the department coordinators and the building leadership work to develop how many sections of classes they need in order to do what's called our first build. So that will continue, and hopefully we'll be able to have a semi-complete schedule between now and June, and then figure out the rest from there. So we're very pleased about that. Middle school scheduling's done through for 7th and 8th grade through X2, and they're on teams. It's a little bit easier once the students are on teams. Right now, the elementary level and grades 5 and 6 are just trying to come up with a better way to be able to place students, because it's a little bit more of a hand placement than it doesn't get computer generated. So they're coming up with a system.
At the start of week 4 that we've been out, we also now have a higher expectation for students. If they want to be able to receive credit for their work, they have to also participate and be able to turn in work.
We have to close out report cards. That's just something that has to be done, because at the end of the school year, we graduate students up and we have to upload information to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So the elementary level, the only coding that's available is an NA, so they will close out those trimester grades. And what they're going to do is continue to give the students feedback, though, from their assignments. The same situation will happen at the secondary level, where the teachers will provide feedback and no credit to students. However, again, coding-wise for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, they'll either do a pass-fail on the term 4 report cards. So there's a lot of different moving parts that go on, because it's not just a grade. We have to worry about transcripts at the high school level that we don't affect GPA. We do expect teachers to be providing feedback to students. So we're starting to shift into more of a kind of remote education period for the next number of weeks that we're out. We're expecting about a half a day's work. So, somewhere between 3 and 4 hours a day is what students should be engaged with learning-wise.
But we've had to work with our teachers because it's very difficult for our teachers who now aren't with their colleagues in school during the day to realize what one may be assigning and another might be assigning staff-wise. We don't want students being totally overwhelmed during this point in time either and ending up with 12 hours of work each day. So, we've asked our teachers to basically work online and be available to their students for about 2 hours a day. And then we're expecting the other half of that time, the other 1 to 2 hours, to be student-directed or student-guided work with check-ins throughout either the day or the week with their staff. We realize that there's nothing that's going to replace face-to-face instruction in classrooms. We're going to do the very best we can to continue instruction, to continue learning, to try to do some fun things with instruction that you don't always get to do, but really be able to break into some more projects that are going to be student-led and student-directed, being able to do some kind of deeper research into areas that maybe you weren't able to do before. So this really could be a fun time for staff and students, and we're trying to push that. Mental health is a challenge for us even during the regular year when school is in session. We have a lot of students that really require counseling and supports in school. So that is a vulnerable population that we're very concerned about during this outage.
Our counseling staff is great. So Lorraine Wilson is our department coordinator in charge of social emotional learning and school counseling. They all got together and they made sure that they contacted their students directly. And then any students that teachers felt as though, or even principals felt as though the student was struggling, that we needed to reach out to that family. So a lot of that work is behind the scenes, many phone calls, even face-to-face Zoom type things like this. I know there's been some home visits too, like our school resource officers and counselors and even principals have stopped by homes. The town of Chelmsford also has a social worker available too for families. Lorraine Wilson and her group had put out a lot of resources for families to be able to access to. That's in a lot of our newsletters. If families aren't sure who to go to, there's a list of different places that they can contact.
Because we know the needs don't go away just because people aren't in front of us. So that group has really stepped up as well. Now try to continue some of the counseling services that were previously being provided in schools, trying to continue that remotely as best we can.